Welcome back to another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. I am your host, Richard Thompson. Today, I'm joined by leadership coach, author, and former lawyer, Midja Fisher. We explore the intersection between emotional intelligence and effective leadership, how vulnerability, self-awareness, and trust are not just optional, but foundational to thriving teams. Whether you're leading a business, a family, or simply navigating life's complexities, today's conversation will leave you rethinking how success is measured. All right, let's get into it. Midja Fisher. Midge, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Richard.
Now, you have an interesting background, and I want to, before we get into the general topic of leadership, which you are a unequivocal thought leader on, take me back. You're a qualified lawyer, but what's your journey look like to getting to a place where what sparked your interest in your focus on empathy and leadership and, I guess, removing yourself out of the chair in a corporate into helping others lead better?
Yeah, sure. So I am a lawyer, I guess, by trade or by my experience. And I hear a lot of lawyers say that they always sort of wanted to be a lawyer. And I meet people and absolutely, I'm like, yes, you are a lawyer. But there's something about their values and that, or social justice. And there's just, something about them that I'm like, yeah, you're a lawyer. I never felt that. So I did law because it was kind of law or medicine as kind of a choice that my dad and grandfather and that kind of said to me. They're like, yeah, pick one. So I was like, yeah, maybe not medicine, but maybe law. And I always wanted to teach. So I always wanted to be a teacher.
Okay.
But anyway, I started with law and it wasn't long. It was only like about 2 years of practicing law when, my side hustle in the law firm was people and coaching people and mentoring them and onboarding them. And yeah, I just did it as a side hustle. So I ran the Gold Coast office. I billed and ran files, but I did all of that on the side. And it wasn't long before the managing partner was like, I hear you're doing all this other stuff for all the other lawyers in the firm, Midge. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, do you just want to do that? And I'm like, yeah, that'd be much better. Let's stop practicing law and just let me help our people be their best and let me help them to lead and so that's kind of, it was just a natural piece that I fell into and loved and was recognized. And I think that was really important. That was kind of a key piece for me that my leader recognized that in me.
And you've authored 3 books, and your most recent one is specifically about the law. But I think for the purposes of today's chat, I mean, we might talk about law, but it's so replicable in all aspects of life and all industries, right? In terms of how we can all be better leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. And like a lot of my practice now, well, it's a very diverse practice. So yes, I work with lawyers and law firms, but, also engineers and accountants and in sport and education and not-for-profits and every industry.
Yeah.
And it is just that really simple concept of, firstly just thinking about myself and the work that I do and how I contribute, and then moving to getting results through other people. And that's, as you said, transferable no matter what we do, whatever industry. But then we have, I guess, particular things relating to sometimes the personalities or the traits of people that go into specific professions or roles. And that's when it can kind of, you want to put that different lens through the leadership coaching and training, depending on the industry sometimes.
Because I'd imagine whether it's a law firm or any other industry that you almost, well, for a large extent, you're good at your job. You're employed initially as a lawyer, as an accountant, as a whoever, and your job is to do on the tools work, and then you're great at that, and then you get promoted, and then and then you get promoted again because you're great at that, and then now your job then becomes primarily looking after the people who did your job before, since you've been promoted, and so they're promoting on to some degree. It seems to be that they're promoting on your ability to do the work, on the tools work, not your ability to lead. And so do you find in your practice, in your work you do, that this is the cavity, this is what's missing, because you've got people going into leadership positions where they now have people to report to them, but they don't really have they're qualified in law, but they're not qualified in leadership.
Yes. So they might have, as you said, that technical ability or that IQ, but not the EQ, not that emotional intelligence piece to be able to step in and lead others. And also some of them don't want to. So I think that's a huge part of the puzzle. It can be very hard for people to step up into a leadership role and then step back down from that. And that recognition of, how I can lead, but in a different way within my profession or within my organization, that specific team leadership kind of role where we are responsible for people, like that takes a particular person to want to do that and want to develop the skills in that and be genuine about it. And I always tell people, if you're not interested in people and what motivates them and what drives them, and if you don't have genuine curiosity and can hold that empathy space for people, then just don't lead people. Like, because it's going to be hard work and you're not going to love it. And any skills that I give you around coaching, delegating, feedback, communication, it's not going to be genuine. And I think that genuineness goes a long way. You can stuff up in some of the skills or make mistakes or, like not use the right model the right way or say something that doesn't land. But if people feel your genuineness around wanting to be their leader and to see them grow and get better, they'll forgive some of that stuff.
With respect to the EQ side of things, is it fair to say, though, that in industry you are going to be promoted into a leadership role because of your IQ, rather than the owners of the corporation value your EQ ability? So you've got to be good at what you do on the tools before you get that leadership role.
Yes, and we're seeing a little bit of a shift in that. Insofar as I think, owners of businesses or like those decision makers around promotions are now kind of going, okay, this hasn't worked for us in the past. This is the person that we have promoted in the past, and it hasn't worked. Yeah. How come? And how can we do it differently? So I am seeing a little bit of a shift with that. And I think also like giving people the opportunity also to build those skills. And I'd love to see the skills around, even, self-leadership, but leading others, leading a firm, being developed in conjunction with our technical skills. Because otherwise, we kind of land in a leadership position from zero. And it's like, now we've got a lot of work to do, rather than concurrently kind of developing those skills as we progress in our careers.
And then so what is that? What is on top of the list for the emotional intelligence piece in your mind? What do we need to first accept or start building into our practice as leaders?
I think that first piece around self-awareness is just the most fundamental part, like being able to step aside from ourselves and examine our own kind of motives and paradigms and just a lot of, that's interesting. how come I got upset by that?
Yeah.
How come I responded like that? That's so just curiosity and interest within ourselves first. Sounds very navel gazing, but I guess it's a little bit of that. And I often say the quote of, get to know yourself and then forget about yourself. But while you don't know yourself well, you're always going to be so kind of wrapped up in yourself. It's hard to be of service to others, and that servant leadership model. I see people throughout their careers, myself included, where there's a real wave to that. Like I think you do go through patches of continuing to go into self-actualization because you're like, okay, now I'm here now. Who am I now? And how do I turn up in this new role?
It's ever evolved. You're ever evolving, right?
And then you're like, oh, cool. I know who I am now. This is good. Okay, now I'm here to serve. And then a little while later, you're like, oh, okay, what next? And so that ride, as long as we're kind of cool with that and we know what to do in the times where we are feeling a little shaky and we don't know what next and we don't know kind of how to show up and what skills we need next, as long as we're like, oh, yeah, this is cool. Welcome back, old friend. Let's do the work and then let's get on with it. So for me, like people come to me when they're like, yeah, I want to do the work. Let's do this. And I say I never want clients for a long time. They can come back, but let's do the work.
Yeah.
And then get out there, do what you're meant to do.
How would someone build their ability to respond to the emotional cues from their team, and how does that play out? I guess you've been a thought leader here and for a long time, but we've sort of, by virtue of 2020, 2021, the world, your team's no longer in the office primarily. There's work from home, there's virtual. How does that impact being able to pick up on team emotional cues and as your job as a leader?
Yeah, huge. Some more international global clients, they've always sort of led, teams that have been quite diversely spread around. So for some, it hasn't been a new development, but certainly for a lot of sort of local clients or in Australia, they, as you said, they've been used to having their team members in the office and now, them being remote. So you miss all of those cues, and we know that the words people use, very small amount of what they're actually communicating. And particularly, I think, for leaders, like in even one-on-ones or your team meetings or your town halls or whatever it might be, whatever mode of communication when you're bringing people together, you don't see how people walk in and you don't see how people walk out. You just see their little tiny face on your screen. I find this when presenting or facilitating. And then they just like leave the meeting and you're like, what was their body and everything doing after that meeting?
Because it's not just two-dimensional. It's the way they walk in, the way in an office, their demeanor and that consistency of data that that Cheryl walks a certain way in a certain speed, the way she talks, the way the tone, the delivery, the vernacular, and then if that shifts as a leader, you should be able to go, yep, that's something's up here. I need to try to be empathetic here and understand what's going on in Cheryl's life, but you don't see that.
Yeah, so the connection piece becomes, so much more important, and really stepping into that coaching space, like the questions we ask, creating that trust space where when you ask the question, you're going to get honesty around that and holding the space around that becomes more and more important.
Where does vulnerability sit then as a leader? Not just asking the questions, but, exposing yourself to the team?
Yeah. Vulnerability is a big one. And sometimes the legal profession of it as well, if we're talking about just different industries, there is certainly like the suit on and the suit. And sometimes I feel like lifting the suit up and going like, who is underneath there? Real presence, real vulnerability, sharing more about ourselves is really important. And sometimes I don't think leaders, I don't know, I'm working with leaders sometimes. I've had leaders say, well, it's not about me, Midge. It's not about me. It's about the firm. It's not about me. It's about the 3-year strategy. It's not about me. And I'm like, well, it is about you. You know, you are the leader they're following. Why would I follow you if I don't know who you are?
Mm.
If I don't understand your integrity and what you stand for and your personal values and your why, and like, I don't know who you are. So why am I going, you know what? Wherever you want to take us, I'm in.
Mm.
Like, I'm going to follow. Helping people to develop those skills of being able to weave themselves and their own stories and their own messages through in a way that, you know, doesn't feel like, look at me, look at me, look at me, like it's all about me. Because, you know, particularly as Aussies, we don't really like that.
But particularly if you've developed a persona in the office where you don't do that. They're not going to come to you and you're going to say you need to have vulnerability, and then they go on next Monday meeting like, guess what? This is what's happened on the weekend. Yes. And they'll be like, whoa, that's not.
Yes.
You know, and I do think that the leadership piece as well is consistency. And that's hard. And I find that's probably the hardest thing that I've experienced over the last 18 months. They want their leader to be consistent with everything they do.
Yes.
And so if you're having a particularly bad day, they pick up on it immediately, because you can't fake that consistency of the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you meet, the way you know, work the room. And I find that particularly challenging.
It's always a great question. Sometimes I'll start like a session or a workshop going, let's have a debate about this. Can a leader have a bad day? It's often a question we talk about, or an answer that we kind of
in a week, Midge?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, where is the kind of that line, I guess, where, you know, you're consistent and you are proactive and you are setting the tone and you are setting the example and you are the role model, but also that vulnerability space of when you are overwhelmed and stressed and concerned and challenged by something, and people can feel that from you. And, you know, how much of that you share. And it's the same with parenting. You know, I've got 3 kids. It's exactly the same. You know, I want my kids to see me as a human being and vulnerable, and sometimes I cry and sometimes I'm upset and I'm stressed and stuff. But also they've got to have confidence in me that I've got this, that there's safety here, that mum's cool. She's got it. She's human, but she's got it. You know,
it's a delicate line. And I think that's where where a lot of people go, well, I'd rather err on the side of we're okay and sweep it under the carpet. But then the problem with that is that the kids, the team, they pick up on it anyway. They'll go, yeah, mum's not feeling great, or she's struggling, but she's also telling me I'm fine. Yeah. So what is that instilling?
That's right.
That's instilling not being vulnerable, not being open, not being honest about it, right? To be able to, but then you have to temper that with, you don't want to get it to the point where like, oh, mum's cooked. I don't know whether
she's lost it.
I think we're going to have to go to boarding school, you know.
That's right. And I think that difference between just that mindset or that paradigm thing of just being in Legoland, you know, everything is awesome, like just this toxic positivity of, yes, we can do this, team. Let's, like that, okay, versus a useful belief. Yeah. Like a useful way of looking at a situation to kind of go, you know what, I do want to share that I am challenged at the moment, and, you know, I am feeling quite indecisive about this, but also know that this is what I'm doing about it. And yeah, like I've felt like this sometimes before, and
we got through it.
I got through it.
Yeah.
So as I think being authentic, honest about that, and just that nice talking leadership all the time, it's just that sweet spot of like Goldilocks, getting it just right. And every skill and every quality we talk about in leadership is the sweet spot. Too much, not good. Oversharing, not good. No sharing, not good.
There is something in the middle. And I think what I come back to personally as to how I would want the kids or the team, how would I want them to communicate with me when they're having a bad day?
Yeah.
You don't want them to overshare. You don't want them to lock it up and say nothing.
No.
So you lead with that and you go, the kids are having a rough day. I want them to be able to say, Dad, I'm struggling. I had a really bad day at school. This is what's happened. Maybe what do you think about it? Or I'm working through it. I'll be okay, rather than the alternative. So I think that's not a bad play to be able to say. Problem is, if you're a leader and you'd rather your team say nothing, that's a real issue. But
that's right. As I said, maybe opt out of leadership.
Fair.
Yeah,
and then I guess it is similar to parenting, where anyone can be a leader, inverted commas. Anyone can be a parent. Not to suggest that everyone should be a leader, and not necessarily that they want to be.
Yes,
as you said earlier. Not everyone wants to be a leader.
And often there's a bit of buffering I see in a lot of organizations sometimes between owners, MDs, whatever they might be, and then the people. So if their skill set doesn't really lie in that people leadership space, then often there's a bit of a couple of people that buffering that.
Sure.
They get people as practice managers or as the CEO, or there might be someone there that can take charge of that side of the leadership, whereas there might be the visionary.
Yep.
They might be the rainmaker or whatever skill they might have, but for them to know, I know there's a little bit of that I've got to do, but also I need people around me that's their magic and their sweet spot. And
Hey guys, just popping in with a gentle reminder. If you're enjoying this episode, we'd love it if you'd give it a like, hit subscribe, and leave a comment with your thoughts. It's free and it really helps us grow and continue to share these stories that matter. Cheers. How do you go about, because we've got a team of 12 ridiculously amazing humans, and we're all really tight. This was a startup, but we've grown to this size. And then you would forever in a day, if you could emulate this as if and when we grow more, you do it. But that comes with its own challenges. How do you, have a tight group of humans at 20, 30, 40, 200? You work with big companies as well. How does a company successfully, how do the leaders in the company successfully create that same level of culture, that same level of empathy on a scalable nature? Because I can walk in any day of the week. I know it's easy, or relatively easy with 12. You know their background. You care about them. You genuinely care about who they are, that they've got purpose within this group. They've got a role, and they're autonomous to do that role.
Yes.
And they feel empowered and fulfilled and worthy. But there at some point, as the owner or as the leader, as the primary leader, I guess, there'd be some number where you physically don't know. You don't have enough time in the day to sit down with 100 people to talk to them about how their weekend was, or did you get over that hurdle with your child at school, or how is your mum going? I know that she's been unwell. How do you play in that game when you're trying to get to a larger level of human resources?
And it can be a very challenging thing in sort of any organization. And I think that's when, we were talking earlier around who we get to step up then in that next level of leadership. Oh my goodness, that decision making becomes really important about who those people are. And then for that next level, I think to know and to understand that horizontal leadership group now is their most important priority. And what I see often the downfall of the growth and when, you're looking at then developing other leaders is they think that their first responsibility is to their team who they lead. I'm like, it's not to the team who you lead, it's to your fellow leaders. That, as long as you keep that tight group, high trust, accountability amongst that group, they know each other inside and out,
Sure.
their first alliances to each other, then everyone else is going to be fine. It's like, again, the parenting thing. The parent relationship is the most important, and everyone else is going to be fine. But when you start to grow your firm and that is not really understood and given priority to, then you start getting the silos, and then you start getting argy-bargy between the leaders, and then they start doing things differently. And whereas those leaders can develop their own teams and their own somewhat team culture, if you like, even, and you give them space and empower them to do that. But knowing that, you've got that leadership team and that commitment to each other and that high trust with each other. And sometimes not enough time is spent on that team and really developing a strong bond.
Do you see that the change in generations impacting the way we lead with, I guess Gen Z and that involvement? Is that just an ageist thing where the younger generation doesn't know anything, or, is it just a specific to the generation that's coming through? Do you find that they are leadable, or they're happy to be part of, a standard, or what sort of model are they looking for? Are they looking for something different?
It's hard to know because, like you said, when you, like for myself now in my 50s, I'm like, okay, I'm now like sort of part of that older generation in the workplace. Has every older generation felt this way?
Exactly right.
Or is this different because of our times? I guess we can just think about the experience that we're having right now. And a lot of the work that I do is, talking to, the leaders and this leadership generation, and then talking to, our Gen Zs and our alphas starting to come through in the workplace, and trying to bridge the outlook and the difference between those two groups. And I think definitely like a new leadership style is needed, and is wanted. And that's definitely the feedback I get from both sort of groups, so from the the older generation kind of going, it just seems like a lot of hard work, and they're still trying to lead in the way that they were led. And I'm like, forget that.
Yeah.
Forget that. That's not going to work for the majority of people. But also talking to the next kind of generation coming through and looking at, okay, let's understand your expectations. And, I'm all about creating that win-win piece. And so, it needs to be a win for the law firm owner and for your leader. And let's talk about how we can lead up and influence there and your behaviors around that. But also for law firm owners, I'm like, well, you got to give them a win. So you got to understand what's a win for them and create that environment for them. Otherwise, you've just got this, we can't find people, we can't keep people, whereas other organizations and law firms go, I have 2 or 3 coffees a week with people that want to join my law firm and are looking for work. Great people. So I'm like, that's a very different experience. And to me, it comes down to that leadership piece. And when people come to me, they might have a couple of job offers. I don't want to spill secrets on any law firms or clients or anything, but often they're like, you've got to, a lot of people in the profession and so forth and firms. And the firm is one thing. I go, great. Yeah, tell me about the firm. Yeah, great reputation, this, that, and the other. But the question I ask them is, who is going to be your leader? Who are you going to learn from? Who are you going to be mentored by? And find out who's worked for that lawyer through LinkedIn, or lots of searches you can do to find out who's worked for that partner before, and talk to them. Because that will be your day-to-day experience of your work life. And so, yeah, that's why leaders are like, it's not about me. I'm like, it is about you. Because that's going to be people's experience of their day-to-day work.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's an enormous amount of time in a week to be mentored by and to be inspired by.
Yes.
Right? Find that it's very easy to judge performance, an individual's IQ performance or their ability to be a lawyer, be an accountant, their productivity, right? Very easy to judge, very easy to assess, report, KPIs.
Mm-hmm.
It'll appear that you and I are both on the same page in the sense of the EQ side, your ability to build culture, the soft skills, not just you as the primary leader, but everyone in the group, right, needs to row in the same direction on an emotional level, on a soft skill level. Otherwise, the culture drops and performance will go. How do we build in an accessible code to be able to say, yeah, you've done well this month on billings or whatever however you want to judge it? Or in your view, what's the best way then to also give equal weight to the emotional intelligence piece of how they showed up within the group for this month, for example? Not something you track, but how do you, because if you've got a staff member who is wonderful on the KPIs, but, incredibly toxic to the culture, you don't want that. No one wants that.
No.
So then how do we have communication? And in the same way, in the alternative, you want to be able to reward, or you want to pay acknowledgement, or pay, have some sort of positive reinforcement to someone who's doing an exceptional job on the culture piece, who's contributing proactively to it. And because that's going to instill, the future of the firm.
Absolutely. And I think if that culture and the cultural norms and behaviors are not articulated well within an organization or a firm, then it's very difficult then to be able to pull someone up on that, or to give feedback or have a conversation or reward or recognize that. And most organizations will sort of have like a set of values. Of course, that their organization kind of lives by, but then the behavioral norms around that and being able to really articulate that, I think, is really important. And having the stories behind those values as well to make them kind of come to life. And so when we have our values, and then we have our behaviors around those values, and we have our storytelling and that kind of piece about that, then it makes it really easy to have that conversation to kind of go, hey, you know that around here we do this. And yesterday at that team meeting, when I saw you do this, it wasn't aligned with that core behavior that is an expectation around here. But when you've just got stuff like, and nothing wrong with these values, but when you've just got like trust and integrity and this as a value, I'm like, well, I don't know what to do with that.
Yep.
Because from values, values are a set of preferences and priorities that we have. They're not ethics or morals. They're your preferences and priorities as a firm. But how we live those values can be very different.
That's the behavior.
Yeah. I often give the example of a key value I see for a lot of people is family and belonging. Now, I could be part of the Banditos motorcycle gang.
Tick.
And have family and belonging as my core value.
Yeah.
Or I could be a young mother with, 2 little kids, and my core value could be family and belonging. But behaviorally, what I expect and what I mean by that is very different.
Yep.
So we need to agree on those as a tribe. We need to agree on that.
Mhm.
And the great thing is, I think, is
You
once
think it's important for the group to come to that conclusion? To
yes,
say that we will accept this is the behavior set.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then for the leader to hold people accountable to that,
Mm.
and that's can be a huge problem. Is what I see
Right.
in leadership is that leaders are not holding people accountable to that. So they're letting things slide. Won't have the tough conversation. And it's so interesting.
Why do you think that is, Midge?
Because sometimes they seem so courageous, like when I meet them, or like even with lawyers when they're litigating and stuff, so courageous. But when it comes to talking to another lawyer or team member about something, oh, no, we're not going to.
But why do you think that is?
I don't know whether it's I think it's a lot of things. I think like just not having the skills, like not knowing how to do that. I think that there's not a deeper level of trust. So we cut corners with our people. We don't develop real connection. We don't develop trust. And so then the conversations are hard. Well, of course they are. Because your level of trust in our emotional bank account is low. So you are going to take things the wrong way. You know, if I say something and overstep the mark maybe with my feedback, which, you know, can happen, people are emotional and stuff, you're not going to forgive me for that. You're not going to hold space for me for that. You're going to, boom, come back down on me.
Yeah.
So when...
Oh, particularly also if you don't have haven't worked on a genuine relationship, any sort of difficult conversation is going to be met with confrontation.
Yes.
Whereas if you just meet somebody and they critique you, your back's up against the
You're
wall.
like, excuse me? Who are you again?
Yeah,
What?
why are you giving me that feedback?
Yes.
Whereas if it's a loved one, if it's your kids or if it's your partner or whoever, your back's not against the wall because there is that trust of that relationship.
If that trust is not there, then we can't have the conversations about the behavioral, the culture piece. And if you as the leader are not going to hold team members accountable for that, then the team members are not going to hold each other accountable. And that's huge, because to have that real, you know, great culture, great leadership, a leader doesn't have to do much. And it's like around my dinner table. Like if one of my kids says something rude to me, I don't want to have to pull that kid up. Like if my youngest Jack, who's 14, says something like, you know, he's having a bit of a moment, I want Tom or Sophie, my older two kids, to go, hey, Jack, we don't talk to mum like that. Pull your head in. I don't have to do it. They know I will do it. That's why they can do it. And it's the same in teams. Like if you're not a strong leader and if you're not going to hold them accountable to that behavior, then the team is not going to do that for themselves.
Yeah. And if you set that behavior, those set of behaviors, and you don't pick up on even the small actions that are out of line with it, all you're doing is condoning it. And then and particularly I would have thought that in more established firms and a more established culture, if they're great lawyers, inverted commas, IQ-wise, they're going to go, oh, that's just Jeff.
Yes.
And excuse that because he has some other value to the firm that they feel like they can't replace or that they need. And presumably he bills a lot or makes them a lot of money. I feel like that's disingenuous because all you're doing is telling the rest of the team these rules or these behaviors are critical. But there's a few exceptions.
You know, there's a complexity to sometimes behavior from, I guess, a diversity point of view and from I don't know, how people kind of show up. And that's, again, another kind of, I guess, another layer of this that I talk to leaders about a lot. And I talk to individual team members about a bit because, you know, sometimes they go, that's just me, Midge. Like, this is just how I behave. Like, this is my personality. Like, I'm just a bit abrupt or I'm just, you know, I just tell it like it is. This is like what I do. I'm just really skeptical. So I do give that face in meetings and whatever. So now sometimes I'll hear this kind of pushback on the behavior to kind of go, well, I'm just being me. I'm just being authentic and genuine. And so again, and, I harp on about the trust piece, but I think when you have environments of high trust, then the intention versus impact of behavior, that's not so much an issue.
Mm.
And I also feel sometimes in high-performing teams, particularly teams that have been together a long time, you can actually get to the stage where there's a certain line of behavior that we're not accepting, but then there's the fringe behavior that people can kind of be all right with. People can kind of get to the point of, like, I've been involved in executive team meetings or board meetings, and I've seen it over the years where suddenly, like, Sue in the corner, who is a bit abrupt and is a bit of the monitor evaluator and will, challenge a lot, everyone just looks to Sue and they'll go, come on, Sue, give it to us. We know you're thinking something. You got something going on.
Mm.
And there's a playfulness about that.
Mm.
But that has to be developed. That takes some trust building and connection for people to be able to really step into that space.
When you have that trust, people can go outside the line and there's empathy and forgiveness.
Yes.
But I think I struggle with if they acknowledge, and it comes back to your first point of where would we go as a leader, and that's self-awareness. To be able, and I think growth mindset plays into that, to be able to say, I have flaws. Everyone has flaws. We're not going to be perfect. And I don't think the perfect leader is a great role model, because that's not true in any sense. But for the team to know that you've got flaws, but you are working on them, that you are capable of working on them, I think is really critical.
Yes. It's not.
As against, that is just me.
Yeah.
Deal with it. That's not a growth mindset piece.
Yeah.
And again, all that does is to say to the team, well, whatever your flaws are, Jeff, that has to be acceptable. I can't. How could I, in a glass house, tell you to fix your flaws that you think are unable to be changed, when I'm saying that's just me?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And some of the tricky, or how people take some of those diagnostic tools and stuff like that as now an excuse of, well, like, I'm red or I'm blue or that's I'm a plant.
That's my
therefore
identity.
I can't do anything else. And it's like, no, we didn't. That wasn't the
purpose of the exercise.
I
I told you, Midge.
We're building some self-awareness.
Yeah.
We're doing that. But then thinking about, there are aspects to my role where I have to flex and I have to be agile, and it's going to be harder work for me. And I'm going to have to be more conscious and more intentional around how I show up. Like, for me, example of this for me is like that real attention to detail and that kind of work for me. Like, I know more of a big picture kind of person and that kind of piece. So I know when I need to get in the minutiae and the detail of something, it's like I got to switch on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, Midge,
A bit more difficult.
This is, but picking the time, the place, the energy I need to give that. But I can't not do it. I can't go, oh well, I'm not an attention to detail kind of person, so sorry, there were mistakes in that.
Yeah.
It doesn't fly. But knowing that about ourselves, that's the cool part.
Yeah.
That's that growth piece. What do I do about that? And how do I leverage my strengths? Absolutely. But also when I need to step or flex into this other space, how do I prepare for that and step into that?
It's fair to say that we're all leaders. We're all leaders in a lot of different areas of life. You don't need to own the company to be a leader, and in fact, you don't need. I believe you don't necessarily need anyone that answers to you to still be a leader, because everyone, the definition of leadership, I guess, is being impressionable on someone else, and for those to be in that impression to elicit a change of action or an action. If the listeners who are tuning in, what would be actionable steps other than self-awareness? And you've gone through that point, and we've done that. We understand that who we are, and we have to accept and then forget. What could, on a daily or weekly basis, what are good actionable steps that we can implement in our lives? And again, leadership at home, like your middle child is a leader.
Yes.
By in that instance of saying, hey, we don't talk to mum like that. That's leadership. and your 14-year-old young child, by the way that they respond to that is in itself a leadership act, to be able to show, look, I'm full on their own sword. Sorry, that's that, you know. So what are the actual steps that we can bring into our daily practice or weekly to become better leaders within our own lives?
So yeah, we've spoken about ourselves and you know, being that self-reflection piece, that asking ourselves better questions of ourselves. I think with dealing with others, you know, and how to step into that space of being able to lead others, I think there is a real piece to like asking questions, creating space for others, like listening. I mean, all of this stuff that I talk about to others and some of these skills, they're not things people are falling off their chair and have not heard before. You know, I mean, they're
simple,
pretty common
simple, not
sense.
easy.
Yeah, really simple things. But, you know, some of that, just those differences between sympathy and empathy, and being able just to hold empathy for another, being able to, you know, regulate our own emotions and our responses, and also be in a position where we can help other people do that. And that's the empathy trick and piece. You know, like, I'm just going to hold the mirror back up to you so you can take a good look at yourself or what you've just said or how you've just reacted or that kind of piece. And I think we can role model. I've had a lot of experiences where I've been asked to coach someone by, let's just say, for an example, like in the C-suite. So it might be I've been asked by the CEO to coach or mentor the chief marketing officer. And sometimes when the CEO is speaking to me, in my head, I'm kind of like, I think it's you maybe that might need the coaching, but I may not have developed the trust in that piece. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to listen. I'm going to hold space. I'm going to see what they're saying. But over time, through working with the chief marketing officer, months later, I'll meet again with the CEO and I'm like, oh my goodness, yes, you've changed. Because through the practices and behaviors of those that they're working around, there's become a new norm of how we treat each other, how we communicate, how we listen. And I think I've seen example of that, where you don't have to be, doesn't have to be that person that you're coaching. It can be anyone in that team. And if they role model this, if they expect that from others, if they turn up in a particular way, others kind of follow suit. And I tell people, be consistent with that. You know, just be consistent with your behaviors and how you communicate and how you show up and all of that kind of piece. And suddenly people are like, oh, that's kind of what we do here. They mightn't get it straight away, but just do it again and just do it again. And that we can lead others. We can be a real influencer and like a transition person, if you like, within a team or in a family dynamic even. Just like keep showing up. And as you mentioned, that consistency piece, I think, is one of the most important pieces. And so many people kind of can give up on some of this stuff, go, well, I showed them empathy and I didn't get my own way.
Work.
You know, or I tried to explain my intention and my motive and I still don't think they got it. So I'm not going to bother doing that anymore. And I'm like, no, stick to it. Keep doing these things. And
I heard a great quote. Your desire to understand must be greater than the desire to be understood. So that's empathy. That's in this conversation that we're having, whether it's at home, whether it's at work.
That's why you got to care about your people.
Otherwise, it's disingenuous.
Yeah.
The empathy doesn't work.
No, because sometimes I'll be on a call from a call center and someone's giving them an empathy script to say, oh, Ms. Fisher, you sound very frustrated by your level of service right now. I mean, that's the script for empathy. That's the skill of empathy, but it's not the intention behind the empathy.
No.
And the intention is more important. Absolutely. So, yes, like that kind of piece is the key. And so all of those skills, like, how we communicate, how we hold space, sharing our intention, our motive, keeping that always above the ground for people, high trust behaviors, keeping promises, following through, practicing accountability, saying I'm sorry, admitting mistakes, talking straight, being genuine with people, setting clear expectations. I mean, there's so many parts to that. But they're fundamental kind of principles of how I show up and treat other people in a relationship, and do that. And we start to develop that trust piece. This is how we interact together. And again, that win-win piece is, mutual benefit, mutual respect. I want to understand you and what's a win for you and what you want from this relationship and this interaction. But also it's important for me to be understood as well about what I want and what's going on for me.
Love that. Midge, thank you so much for coming on. This has been wonderful. And I think what you're doing, the space that you hold in this sector is invaluable. So thank you.
Wonderful.
Before you go,
Yes.
final 5 questions.
Yes.
Quick fire. I'm
Yes.
told. Answers. What does success mean to you?
For me, it means freedom. Yep.
What does happiness mean to you?
Like lightness.
Okay. What does the morning routine look like on a normal day for you?
Morning routine is a little bit of journaling, a little bit of writing first. I was always told to create before I consume.
Nice.
And
I like that.
most of my mornings every day is kind of different.
Okay.
So apart from that, I could be anywhere doing anything.
But writing
Most
first.
mornings, writing first.
Yep.
Getting everything out of my head first.
Piece of advice you'd give to your younger self that you'd put on a billboard for the world to see?
I think that you've got this. Things will work out.
Love that. And then finally, a guest, an inspiring guest you think would be good for us to have on the show?
A couple of people, I guess, that one of them, and you will have heard a lot of my quoting from Dr. Stephen Covey from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, is no longer with us, unfortunately. But a huge inspirational man for me in his writing and his ability to be able to be succinct around the principles of leadership and living life and effectiveness. So, he was someone that if I had the chance to have a conversation with someone, I would have liked to have had a conversation with him.
Okay. Midge, thanks so much. I really appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to everyone listening to this and taking something away, because I think we can all be better leaders in our own right.
Thanks, Richard. Thank you.
That was another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. Next time you are in a moment of self-doubt, turn to the person next to you and tell them all about the show. A big thank you to Midge for joining us on the show and sharing her insights. If this episode inspired you, take a second to subscribe, leave a comment, or share it with someone who you think would enjoy it. It's the only way we are growing. Until next time, peace.